You are listening to the audiobook Veilshatter, Legends of Elyndar, now available on Amazon, Audible, and wherever books are sold. Featuring our three unforgettable heroes, an epic adventure begins.
Trapped in the mirage. The illusion bared its teeth as the dunes reached their zenith, a gleaming arc welded to the burning sky, where the blue haze grew nearly blinding, stroking vision with shapes that tangled past and future. Only the stubborn crunch of sand underfoot reminded the companions they moved within a world with rules, however tenuous those rules seemed in the mercy of the howling dunes. The wind stilled. Silence spread brittle as spun glass, so complete that even the old pulse of their hearts seemed an affront. Veyran, muscles taut, paused mid-stride, lightning brand angled subtly outward. Shadows rimmed his eyes, the aftermath of word-binding throbbing just beneath his skin. Ahead, the air shimmered, distorted and thick, not with heat, but with something harder to define, a warping of what should be seen and what should remain hidden. A flock of Virilian songbirds rippled across the sky, iridescent wings slicing through nothing, dissolving before they reached the horizon. Their song lingered, fragile notes eked from the very edge of memory. Leora felt the ache rise behind her eyes, her grip tightening on her satchel, half expecting her mother's voice to break the stillness again. A shape emerged atop the far ridge, a single figure standing in an attitude of delicate waiting. No wind disturbed the figure's glass-threaded robes, no prints scarred the sand at their feet. The figure's head tilted, canted in impossible empathy, as if tracking the group's exhausted hope. "Who is that?" Ariel whispered, her voice a breathless fracture. Her gaze sharpened, cautious and curious both. Her childhood ghosts never wore glass, and yet this one seemed familiar, a silhouette with the patience of eroding stone. Sen mumbled beneath his breath, runes skittering over his lips. Too low to ward, but perhaps enough to anchor. Veyran shot Talin a sideways glance, sharp, laden with unasked questions, and took a hesitant step forward. The figure's arm lifted in a beckon, then split and multiplied. A dozen arms, 100, each bearing a memory. Had Talin seen it before? At a different crossroads, a prior exile, shadow-stitched at the edge of collapse? Cold sweat dotted his brow, and his next step landed wrong. "Don't," he rasped, forcing stillness into his bones. The dunes seemed to ripple with agreement, a convulsion beneath the false calm. "It's a thrall lure." Each word tasted familiar and poisonous in his mouth. "That's their trick. They send what we desire most, cloaked by pain. Then the ground gives way beneath our feet." Ariel hesitated, hand trembling near the vials at her belt, jaw set against the temptation to answer whatever call echoed behind her ribs. She swallowed, felt her own alchemical reserves thinning. A hasty swallow would mend little, and every measure hoarded now cost dearly later. Leora's gaze latched onto Talin, reading more than his warning. Suspicion kindled. She measured the lines around his eyes, the tremor in his jaw. "Why do you know they're working so well?" The question hovered, sharp as any blade, but Leora left it unsaid, her voice buried with the sand. The mirage peeled open. The single figure fractured into a procession. For each of the four travelers, another self appeared, bodies defined by the things they missed or mourned. For Leora, her mother stood, whole and unblemished, arms wide. Behind Ariel, a man drowned and laughing, her brother before the tide. For Veyran, a faceless crush of storm and sky, the promise of a life not beaten to service. For Talin, a brother lost to flame, reaching out, forgiveness in the crook of his smile. Veyran's feet began to move, almost without his consent, steps pulling him forward with the rhythm of old longing. Power thrummed at his wrist, lightning eager for escape. A plea for release or renewal, he could not tell. Zephyrson's presence brushed the edge of his mind, distant and withering, unable to waken him fully from the spellwork. "Stop!" Talin hissed, low, lashing the syllable through clenched teeth. He scanned the ground, eyes darting to where the sand grew oddly still. No wind, no drift, just a waiting pool in the crest's heart. His fingers brushed blunted sandstone, tracing shapes too neat, too symmetrical to form by chance. There, spiraling outward from a single black crystal, runes gleamed, inscribed in a tongue he despised and understood. Coiling, ready to uncoil and swallow. He drew in breath, the air thick as blood. There's a sinkhole ahead, trap laid twice, once in the mind, once in the sand. Back, now. Veyron fought the compulsion, thunder locking his joints as he wrenched himself backward, each inch a battle. Ariel dropped low, hands skimming the earth for an anchor to truth. A bead of tincture burst, its aroma slicing through illusion, sage and brine, smoke and cold iron, cutting the mirage at her heels. Talin's hands never left the runes as he circled the perimeter, knuckles white where he gripped his knife, the memory steel thrumming with borrowed warnings. He whispered something, not spell, but invocation, threads of his old exile tongue holding the lie of safety at bay. Leora had seen enough runecraft to know the signs, marks dug deep with intent, the pattern focusing on a negative space in the center of the spiral withering, not beckoning. Reach for it, and the sand would collapse, hungry as any spirit starved of flesh. She closed her eyes, forcing her magic inward. The specter mother faded, sorrow replaced by cold clarity. Side effects nipped at her consciousness, vertigo bordering on nausea, fingers tingling with aftershocks as she pressed soul-weaving back behind its seals. Sen finished his muttered rite, a counter-rhythm half-sung, half-spat, standing sentinel as the air thickened. He fixed Talin with a wary, appraising stare. The phantasms hesitated, flickering. Doubt, true doubt, shivered the edge of the mirage, and for a heartbeat, Leora saw what lay beneath. The figures hollow, skin roiling with runes like a living scroll, faces stretched over bone and memory. The illusion quaked, hungry for applause or surrender. Ariel shook herself free, vision clearing as the tincture forced her mind's eye to see, not wishes, but warnings. She scrambled toward Talin, skirting the rune border. "Go wide," Talin barked, his voice a lash. "Don't step in the shadow." He outlined a path with the knife's tip, gouging the sand so it bled pale, magic-tinged dust. Veyron, breathing ragged, managed, "How are you so certain?" The suspicion in his gaze was knife-sharp, almost a plea for Talin to explain himself beyond mere necessity. Talin's lips twisted, memory flickering like a wound. "My exile tribe, this was their craft after the pact was shattered. The thralls buy patterns from those desperate enough. I never," he cut himself short, words crashing beneath the weight of old oaths and new shame. Above them, the phantasms convulsed, howls split by the rent in their illusion. The once lovely faces grew stretched, snapped backward into mask-like grins before they melted into darkness, lines of runes trailing vapor where flesh should have been. With deliberate slowness, the group navigated the path Talin traced, every step wary, each breath a contest with the urge to look back, to question if the trap was truly behind them and not before. Ariel caught herself glancing to the right, where her brother's doppelganger had vanished, longing sour on her tongue. Behind them the dunes sagged inward, the mirage unraveling in a subtle violence, the sand caving with a silence too calculated to be natural. In that stillness, the silhouettes of the Eclipse Thralls revealed themselves, merely glimpses. Long-shadowed forms wrapped in dusk, each bearing a mask inscribed with runes that shimmered blue and black, sinks of light in the morning gloom. They did not pursue. Instead, they receded, dissolving into the deeper dark within the dune's hollow, content to let the memory of their snare fester behind the traveler's eyes. Unease simmered among the companions as they climbed the next rise. Even the sky seemed to press lower, shrunk beneath the ghostlight, the land laid out in endless unnatural twilight. Leora's question lingered, weighty and personal. "How much of their way is still in you?" she asked, quiet but urgent, watching Talin's face for cracks to match her own. Shadows bruised his cheekbones, sweat carved lines down his temples. Talin met her gaze, bleak and unflinching. "Enough to know what to avoid, enough to wish I didn't." He stowed the knife, the old sigil catching fresh light, a sliver of loyalty twisted into regret. Ariel joined them, pressing a small vial toward Leora's hand, half an offering, half an apology for the things seen during the Mirage's grip. Veyron drew the group tight. His strength was forced, the leader's mantle never heavier. "We rely on each other, yes," he said, "but no more silent bargains. If any of you recognizes a trap of memory or power, you share it. Secrets fed the thralls for too many generations." The wind returned, flaying the silence. For a moment it carried laughter, high, flickering, crawling under the skin, then faded into simple air. Sen pointed up the slope, stammering, "Starlight! That way. We can't linger." As they walked, fatigue pressed at the edges, a price exacted not only by magic, but by the truths ripped from marrow to mind. Leora wrapped her cloak close, the artifact at her hip growing heavier, whispers of prophecy threading into anxiety. Ariel's memories tangled, the cost of alchemy gnawing from within. She resolved to ration the handful of sun-capped leaves left in her pouch, fearing what spell the dunes would next demand. Veyron kept his stormbrand ready, the lightning inside quieter now, a reservoir not yet refreshed. In the recess between breaths, Zephyrson's presence waxed, a comfort or a warning, indistinct. The echo of the thrall's trap left a sour note, a tremor that foreshadowed threats still hidden in the world's wounds. Step by step, suspicion and hope braided together, neither strong enough to shake loose. Whatever the next ridge revealed, friend, fiend, or phantom, the companions no longer mistook the difference between mirage and peril. Above, the first true star winked on in the blue burnished sky, a promise as much as a warning. And ahead, where the dunes kissed vision into water and stone, the distant outlines of moonlit towers flickered like the echo of a half-remembered story, beckoning them on, fractured yet together, toward Tok'rith and whatever choices waited there, choices shadowed, but not yet claimed by the memory of the thrall's hunger.